The setting is a bare interior with gray lighting. There are 2 small windows with drawn curtains, a door, and 2 ash bins covered by an old sheet. Ham sits on an armchair with wheels, covered by an old sheet. Clove stares at Ham, motionless. They stay like this for a moment, then Clove, with a bowed head, surveys the room. He looks at Ham, then out the window facing the sea, then out the one facing land. He staggers off stage and returns with a stepladder, which he sets under the sea window. He climbs it, draws open the curtains, looks out, and laughs briefly. He repeats this for the land window. He removes the sheet from the ash bins, raises the lid of one and looks within, briefly laughs, and closes the lid. He repeats this for the other bin. Trailing the sheet, he walks to Ham and removes his sheet. Ham, in his dressing gown, a whistle hanging around his neck, and a handkerchief over his face, appears to be asleep. Clove returns to his original spot and turns to the audience. Clove says, "Finished, it's finished, nearly finished, it must be nearly finished." Grain upon grain, one by one, and one day, suddenly, there's a heap, a little heap, the impossible heap. He says he'll go to his kitchen and wait for Ham to whistle him. He leaves, then comes back, takes the ladder and carries it out. Ham awakens and removes the handkerchief. He wears dark glasses. Ham removes and then replaces his glasses and folds away his handkerchief. He questions whether anyone, his parents, his dog, suffers as much as he does. He calls for Clove, but gets no response and believes he's alone. He says it's time it ended, but he hesitates to end. He whistles and Clove enters. Ham insults him and orders Clove to prepare him for bed. Clove argues that he just woke Ham up. Ham asks if Clove has ever looked at his eyes while he sleeps. Clove hasn't, as they've turned white. He asks what time it is, and Clove replies, "Same as usual." Ham asks if he has looked out the window, and Clove gives his report, 0. Ham asks Clove if he's had enough of this thing. Clove says he always had, and Ham agrees. Clove laments their life of the same, repetitive questions and answers. Ham commands him to get him ready, but Clove doesn't move. Ham threatens to hold back food from him, and Clove goes for Ham's sheet. Ham stops him and asks why Clove stays with him. Clove asks why Ham keeps him. For Ham, there's no one else, and for Clove, nowhere else. Ham accuses Clove of leaving him. Clove concedes that he's trying to do so and that Clove doesn't love him. When Clove says he doesn't, Ham says he did once, which Clove admits to. Ham asks if he's made Clove suffer too much, a sentiment Clove finally supports, to Ham's relief. Ham asks for forgiveness, and inquires about Clove's bad health. He tells him to move around and come back. He asks why Clove doesn't kill him. Clove replies that he doesn't know the combination of the larder. 2 designs should be apparent with Beckett's set. The bare bones construction recalls a skull, with the 2 windows as eyes, the 2 ash bins as nostrils, and Ham's central position as the mouth. The constant visual reminder is of death, and the second design feature also heralds death in subtler ways. Endgame is named for the series of moves that constitute the end of a chess game. The outcome is usually inevitable. The memorized moves are a mere formality for experienced chess players, and the player with the advantage coming into the endgame will almost always win. Beckett, a chess player himself, draws a parallel to the endgame of life, in which death is the inevitable outcome. The characters or players enact repetitive rituals that are part of their endgame. Repetitions are the basis of much of Beckett's dramatic work, exposing the ways we while away time before death. Waiting for Godot repeats most of its first act and its second act, but Endgame expands the playwright's view of repetitions. The first use of repetitions, as encoded in Beckett's short play Happy Days, is to show dependency between complementary figures, either human or inanimate. The set is filled with doubled props: the windows to land and sea, the ash bins, and the sheets. Ham and Clove are the most obvious pair. Ham is incapacitated but holds sway over Clove, who can perform simple functions. The underlying tension in the play is whether the submissive Clove will leave the dominant Ham, but their codependency makes this possibility seem unlikely. The dominant submissive couples in Beckett's other work, Vladimir and Estragon in Godot, Winnie and Willie in Happy Days, exhibit similar codependencies, and Beckett has described Ham's and Cloves' tension as analogous to his experiences with his wife in the 1950s, when both wanted to leave each other but felt they couldn't. The more philosophical use of the repetitions is to demonstrate the stasis in the world of Endgame. While repetitions performed the same purpose in Beckett's earlier work, here he refines his ideas through the conflation of beginnings and endings. The opening words of the play are Cloves' announcement that it's finished. Jesus' last words are also, "It is finished," also delivered with about head, John 19:30, and his death marked a momentous fusion of ending and beginning, the end of his life with the birth of Christianity. The major theme of Endgame is that life is a circular existence without a specific beginning or ending, and as such creates a sense of repetitive stasis. Cloves' definition of the impossible heap couches this idea in paradoxical terms. Since one grain is not a heap, when does an accumulation of distinct grains become a single heap? While it will at some point be informally considered a heap, the mass of grains will always be composed of individual grains. It is, therefore, an impossible heap. The grains keep repeating, growing larger, but never become a final heap, and in the same way, an existence consisting of individual moments will never become a final life. This lack of closure is why Clove keeps amending his initial definition of finished to "it is finished" to "nearly finished" to "it must be nearly finished." Nothing is ever truly finished until death says so. Our repetitive actions, then, cycle around and become static, just as the same as usual world of zero change is